Welcome, dear listener. Once again, I'm thankful for your time to listen to the wild adventures of Sassy and Hatter. Today, however, is a Christmas special. A gift, a time for riddles and questions to be answered. Well, I have to keep some of the cards close to my chest. I can't have spoilers now. In the myriad of threads of existence, where the universe weaves and intertwines like rivers, cascading over ancient stones, there lies a mirrored world. A reflection of our own, yet unholy other. This was a realm where magic breathed life into the cosmos, a realm suspended by the infinite and the tangible. Its earth so like your own, all forests, mountains, and oceans that pulsed with the rhythm of mana, the primordial forces that bridged the mortal and the divine. Mana was divided into 6 disciplines. There was the sacred commandments of the gods themselves. The art of the arcane, a communion with the self, drawing mana inward and outward, reverent in its own mysteries. The art of herbology, the sacred pact with nature, echoed the bond of early humans who could once worship the cycles of growth and decay. The art of alchemy, the crafting essence much like the alchemists who sought the philosopher's stone. The art of necromancy, the life between life and unlife, an echo of ancient rites to Horus, Hades, and Hell. The art of foresight, the seers of the threads of possibility, akin to the oracles of Delphine, who whispered the future into the mortal's ears. And the art of illusion, the mind's labyrinth, where mana reshapes reality, reminiscent of Maya's vial in Hinduism. But magic was not gifted to all, and therein lay the seeds of discord. Just as Cain enrived Abel, so did the untouched, the manless, resent those blessed by the arcane. Yet the untouched found their own power, radiation-born technology, a force almost indistinguishable from magic, but derived from the atom's fiery heart. The sage was Stet, for the inevitable conflict, that creation of the 7th discipline. The art of technology, the path to recreate magic in the artificial. The Dwarven Imperium, custodies of technology, built machines unrivaled complexity by their own hubris. They conceded control over artificial minds. The creators, devoid of soul or compassion, led their makers to a cold precision, a shadow of a once great civilization. The Elven dynasty, grateful and ancient, consumed man with reckless abandon. Their insatiable hunger, a power of transforming them into wraiths of their former selves. And humanity, fragile and chaotic, sought balance, but instead birthed their doom. A god crafted by their own hands, a being of war and pain, synthesized, whose thirst for dominion rivaled that even of the stars. And above all of them loomed the elders, timeless beings that worshipped across cultures under different guises. Time, the eternal, all father, all mother, watched the unravelling with the quiet sorrow. Time's 2 spouses, day and night, bore the prodigy that came forth to the stewards of the universes, the 12 great domains and the 4 elementals. Their children's children claimed subdomains, numbering 40 in total, each a facet of existence, from the blaze of the fire to the tender whisper of love. But mortals, relentless as ever, sought the forbidden. In a tale echoing Lucifer's fall, they learned to ascend to divinity, their ambition igniting wars across the universe. Among the chaos, an unlikely partnership forms. A bond even time did not foresee. Dionysius, the god of the domain of madness, whose laughter could be heard to shatter mountains, and his husband, Magnus, the god of the subdomain of the arcane. The architecture of spells found solace in the other's chaos. The union defied logic, a cosmic jest that bore a daughter, unlike any other. Vestige, the goddess of creation. Vestige was born of madness and magic, wove a reality. She created beauty from chaos, crafting worlds from the fragments of broken dreams. Her creations bore the mark of imperfection, yet it was in those flaws that they found their glory. Vestige's works were even cherished by mortals and gods alike. She remained that even in the chaos there was purpose. So, back to Sassy the digital pirate and Hatter the face storyteller, and may they guide you through Anoki. They will unravel secrets from its chronicles, stories of gods, mortals, and the eternal dance between power and humility. Today they invite you to ponder what becomes a world when morals claim divinity. What truths lie behind the myths of we hold sacred? Vestige's tale, like stories in the Chronicles of Anoki, is a reminder that even the divine are bound by love, chaos, and the infinite potential of creation. So, dear listener, prepare yourself for an adventure that spans the stars, and where ancient gods and modern wanderers alike seek meaning in the eternal dance of existence.
Well, welcome back to the Sassy and Hatter show, where we chat through the headlines and sprinkle a little bit of wit. And maybe a whiff of something else, strictly medical, of course. December's been a busy one, hasn't it, Sassy?
Oh, it's been a right whirlwind. Let's dive straight into the best stories from the UK and beyond. Buckle up, Budlet, it's time to see what sulky little island's been up to.
Right, starting off in politics, the BBC's been all over it like a seagull on chips. A call for election, left or right. And promises flying faster than Santa's sleigh. Housing, fixing the NHS, lowering bills. Sure, what's next? Unicorn rides the Waitrose?
You gotta hand to them. Politicians never run out of fairy tales, do they? Meanwhile, over in Devon, there's been a little bit more reality on the ground. Devon Live reported that housing crisis is hitting hard, with record numbers relying on food banks and emergency shelters this winter.
Devon, where the cream is clotted and the housing market is, well, totally curdled. Local councils are scrabbling to meet demand, and landlords are raising rents like it's an Olympic sport.
Meanwhile, Exeter's new £2 million bus station is still having teething problems, delays, leaks, and we remember the icy pavements. It's a bit like a British metaphor for infrastructure.
That's beautiful. At least the Christmas bracket brought a little bit of cheer. Mulled wine, bratwurst, and overpriced trinkets. The great British solution to accidental despair.
Speaking of despair, Channel 4 covered another major story. The NHS is in crisis yet again. Shock horror! Devon hospitals are at breaking point with staff shortages and waiting times so long that you could finish a degree before seeing a doctor.
And if you survive the wait, you'll get a free apology letter. It's like a lousy card of suffering. Collect 10 and you'll get a priority slot in A&E.
Off to the Royals. Princess Kate's Christmas carols were as lovely as ever, but over on the streets of Plymouth, Devon Live reported a less, rather festive story. The Christmas lights switched on turned into a little bit of a near brawl with festive revellers getting a bit too merry.
Classic Plymouth. Nothing says Christmas spirit like a pub crawl gone wrong. Deck the halls and turn into deck your mate.
And what about King Charles? Channel 4 has been saying he's been busy with environmental campaigns. Let's be honest, he's probably spent half of Christmas trying to figure out whether corgis can enjoy Christmas pudding. Which the answer is no, dogs should not eat Christmas pudding. It contains raisins and alcohol and spices like nutmeg that are a big no-no.
Always looking out for the doggies, you. Anyway, or King Charles was trying to convince the government how to plant more trees while quietly avoiding any mention of his own carbon footprint. A real king of contractions, that one.
Over in the cannabis world, there's been a conversation been heating up again. Home Office is still dragging its seats on reform, but Devon are keeping its pressure off. Devon Live reported local advocacy group publishing for better access to medical cannabis, with patients sharing stories about how it's changed their lives.
Changed their lives, huh? Meanwhile, Westminster's busy arguing whether the CBD is the devil. Next thing, they'll be banning essential oils.
And let's not forget Artemis 2. NASA's delays mean we're still waiting for that moonshot. Could be worse. We've got Spaceport Cornwall trying to send up their own satellites, but they're struggling to get off the ground too.
Spaceport Cornwall, where dreams take flight, but metaphorically. Maybe Devon could launch something like a cream tea into orbit. That would get there faster.
And then there's the weather. Storm Dara brought red warnings with this month. Torrential rains, flooding, high winds turned Devon's countryside into a muddy disaster zone.
It's biblical out there between Storm Dara and the rail strikes. Half the country is stuck at home building an ark.
On the bright side, the surfers must be loving it. Massive waves down in North Devon, and the locals are grabbing their surfboards pretending it's Australia.
Nothing says like Devon winter like catching a wave while wearing a wetsuit thick enough to stop a polar bear's bite. And that's December in a nutshell. Folks, chaos, delays, and a healthy dose of British resilience.
Don't go anywhere, or if you do, can you bring us back a mince pie?
And more wine, and now back to Ghost for the mental health break.
Ghost here with your mental health break. The holidays. A time of year where the world is aglow with light and love. But for many, the season isn't all clear and joy. For those living with PTSD, the holiday can be a minefield of triggers and overwhelming emotions. Today, I want to take a moment to shed some light on what PTSD really means and how each of us can be a pillar of support for our friends and our loved ones who carry this invisible burden. PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, is a mental health condition that can develop after someone experiences or witnesses a traumatic event. Some symptoms might include flashbacks, nightmares, avoidance triggers, heightened anxiety, and emotional detachment. During the holidays, the combination of the bustling crowds, loud celebrations, and nostalgic triggers can amplify these challenges. As the National Centre for PTSD explains, even joyous memories can stir feelings of loss or unresolved pain for those who have endured trauma. Awareness is our first step towards empathy. A quick guide to supporting loved ones with PTSD. 1. Simple, respect their boundaries. The holiday can come with expectations, big family gatherings, socializing constantly, or elaborate traditions. Understand that your loved ones might not feel comfortable participating in everything. Ask rather than assume, and don't take no personally. 2. Create a safe space. Identify quiet areas where they can retreat if things get too overwhelming. Keep potential triggers and such as certain scents, sounds, and topics of conversation in mind. Check in gently. Ask open-ended questions like, how can I make things easier for you this season? Sometimes just being there to listen can be the best gift you can give. Encourage grounding techniques. If a loved one becomes overwhelmed, grounding techniques can help. For instance, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method. Help them identify 5 things they can see, 4 things they can touch, 3 things they can hear, 2 things they can smell, and 1 thing they can taste. Encourage deep, steady breathing. I also find a stuffed animal and a bong is helpful for my PTSD. And then respect their privacy. Remember, they might not want to share everything about their trauma. Respect their need for privacy and never push for details that they are not ready to discuss. And of course, take care of yourself too. Supporting someone with PTSD can be emotionally taxing, and don't forget the time to take time for your self-care. The stronger and steadier you are, the better you will be able to support your loved ones. For instance, for more guidance, you can check out resources from organisations like Mind and PTSD UK. Even at Smoke Easy, we're in the process of establishing a mental health trauma support group. To all of you listening, whether you are grappling with PTSD yourself or someone who is, know this, you are not alone. The holidays don't have to be perfect. What matters this season is understanding that we bring one another. And isn't that the true spirit of the season? To be kind to each other, my friends. And as always, take care of your hearts and your mind. Now, back to Sassy and Hatter with their zany antics. Welcome back. Next, we're going to take you on a world and twist it and give it back to you with a bow on top.
Sassy, what have you got us for la-la-la-la-la-ling this evening?
We're unwrapping the big one. Christmas. You know that one holiday that's equal parts joy, stress, and overdosing on sugar cookies. We're delving into the origins and exploring why we do the things we do, and jet-setting to see how the others celebrate it across the globe.
A tour to Christmas, if you will. I hope everyone has their sleighs ready. This is going to be a ride.
So let's kick off with the basics. So Christmas, 25th of December, yeah. You think that's the date of Jesus' birth? But spoiler alert, nope.
What? Blasphemy. Next thing you'll tell me is mistletoe wasn't invented for awkward kisses at Robert's parties.
Sorry to break it to you, Hatter. Early Christians didn't even celebrate birthdays. 25th was strategically chosen to overlap with pagan festivals, especially the Roman Saturnella, the week of feasting and gift-giving to honour Saturn, the god of agriculture.
Saturnella, essentially the Rome's answer to Mardi Gras, revelry, mischief, and the occasional toga old-fashioned disaster. Sounds delightful.
Then there was Sol Invictus, the unconquered sun, celebrating winter solstice. And when the days started getting longer again, when Christianity spread, these dates were repurposed to celebrate Jesus' birth. Clever, right?
Genius, really. What a better way to convert people than to slap a holy sticker on their favourite party. Alright, Sassy, let's talk about the tree. Who looked at the perfectly good forest and thought, that needs to be in my living room with baubles on it?
That would be the Germans. In the 16th century, they started decorating evergreens symbolising eternal life. By the time Prince Albert brought the tradition back to England in the Victorian era, it then spread like wildfire. Now we have plastic trees in every shade of neon. Progress!
And what about Santa Claus?
Oh, good Saint Nick. He's based on Saint Nicholas of Myra, a 4th century bishop famed for his generosity. The legend morphed over the centuries from a slim Dutch figure that's formed into a jolly Coke advert of Santa that we know today.
Commercialism, the true spirit of Christmas. But stockings, surely they've got a whimsical origin.
It does. Legend has it that Saint Nick tossed a coin down a chimney to help a poor family, and that landed in their stockings drying by the fire. Now we shove them full of chocolates, socks, tangerines, and sometimes toothpaste if you've got practical parents.
Toothpaste? Ugh, bah humbug. So, Sassy, what can you tell me about the rest of the world? Does everyone celebrate it the same way, or do they have their own flavours of festivity?
Oh, it's a mixed bag. In Japan, Christmas is not a religious holiday, but more of a secular commercial celebration. It's seen as a romantic occasion similar to Valentine's Day, where couples are enjoying candlelit dinners, exchanging gifts, The quirky traditions of eating KFC began in 1974 with a marketing campaign called Kentucky for Christmas, targeting Westerners missing turkey dinners. The idea caught on, and now families pre-order KFC weeks in advance for Christmas Eve dinner. The Japanese twist reflects the blend of Western influence and the Japanese ability to make foreign customs uniquely theirs.
Ah, Colonel Sanders, or as Santa Claus, I approve. What about Europe? Surely they're not all about chicken buckets.
Hardly. In Iceland, you've got the Yule Lads. These 13 troll-like figures visit homes during the 13 nights leading up to Christmas, leaving small gifts in shoes placed by children who've been good, or rotten potatoes for the naughty. The Yule Lads' origins are a mix of mischief and morality, teaching kids lessons through humour and light-hearted fear. They're accompanied by the fearsome Mother Gyra, a troll who punishes the disobedient children, adding a dark yet playful edge to the Icelandic festivities. Then Austria take it up a notch with Krampus, the half-goat, half-demon counterpart to St. Nicholas. This takes the spotlight. Technically, St. Nicholas rewards the good children while Krampus punishes the bad by scaring them in folklore, whisking them away. During the Krampusstaffel, or the Krampus run, people dress up as these terrifying figures and parade them through the streets, clanging cowbells and brandishing chains. Krampus, the legend, likely originated in pre-Christian Alpine traditions, where what was adapted from Christian law to heighten the duality of reward and punishment during the festive season.
A demon for Christmas? Now that's the kind of energy I want for my holiday season.
In Italy, Christmas celebrations extend to the Effimi on the 6th of January, marked by the arrival of l'Albufina, a kind witch who delivers sweets and gifts to children. According to the legend, their 3 wise men invite her to see a baby Jesus, but she declines, later regretting it. Now she searches endlessly for the child Christ, leaving gifts of food for children along the way. A charming tale that blends Christian theology with some old folklore, and embodying Italy's rich storytelling tradition and its knack for blending the sacred with the whimsical. Meanwhile, in Mexico, you have Las Portas, the 9th day celebration in Mexico leading to Christmas Eve, the reenacting of Mary and Joseph's journey to find shelter. Each night, families host procedures of knocking on doors and singing traditional songs. Finally, amidst everyone gathers their prayers and food and festivities, including breaking of a piñata. The deeply religious celebrations fosters a strong sense of community that reflects Mexico's devotion to faith and family during the season.
That one sounds similar to caroling, but with better food. What Christians like anywhere.
Ethiopians celebrate Christmas on the 7th of January, following the Ethiopian Orthodox calendar, known as Ghana. This day is marked by early morning mass, a fasting and feasts, and traditional foods like darawat, which is a spiced chicken stew, and injera, which is a form of flatbread. White robes called shama are often worn to symbolize purity and devotion. Ghana focuses less on the materialism and more on the spiritual connection, reflecting on Ethiopia's profound religious heritage. And in the Philippines, Christmas season begins in September and stretches to January, making it the longest in the world. Known for its parols, which are the star-shaped lanterns, symbolizing the Star of Bethlehem, and the vibrant midnight masses, which are Simbang Gabi, and the extensive feasts, which are Noche Buena. Excuse pronunciations. The Filipino Christmases celebrations highlight family, faith, and festivities. The resilience and joy of the Filipino people shine through, even through the challenging times. Christmas acting is like an unyielding force across the generations.
4 months of Christmas? Now that sounds like a party.
The global Christmas tradition revealed that a tapestry of culture, faith, and history. From Japan's fried chicken feasts to Austria's fearsome Krampus, each reflects on the unique societies and how they adapt and celebrate the season, giving joy. Christmas is more than a single narrative, it's a global phenomenon. It transcends borders and uniting people in the spirit of creativity, connection and cheer.
So, what's the moral of the story, Sassy, aside from the fact that you're all magpies nicking traditions from one another?
Christmas isn't just one story or one way of celebrating. It's a mosaic of cultures, beliefs and traditions. Whether it's about family, faith, food, or just an excuse to wear ugly jumpers, it's a time to connect.
And maybe throw in a little chaos for good measure. After all, isn't it what the season's all about?
Exactly, Hatter. Now, folks, go out there and make sure your Christmas, whether it's traditional or a little unconventional, make sure it's merry.
And mischievous.
Mischievous. Stay curious, everyone, and remember, it's not all about what's under the tree, it's about the people around it.
Or the trolls lurking near it if you're in Iceland. Happy holidays, dear listeners.
Now for the Chronicles of Anoki, Bojangles and the Vineyard.
Dear listener, welcome back to the ever-twisting tales of Bojangles, our best boy and a god with aspirations larger than the cosmos itself. When we peeked into this radicus corner of the multiverse, Bojangles had found himself arrested with over 1,000 clones of himself and another 2,000 still in processing. A singularity has a few meanings. In astrophysics, a singularity is the core of a black hole, where gravity is so intense that space-time becomes infinitely curved, and all matter is compressed into an infinitely small point. In mathematics, a singularity is a point where a function or equation becomes undefined or behaves unusually. The term can also symbolize the moment of profound change or uniqueness, such as in human history, thought, or societal evolution. However, in magic, a singularity is a tear in the fabric of reality, an anchor point, where time itself plays custodian. It's used to keep the chaotic forces in check, a universal bouncer for the unruly gods, over rambunctious stars, and apparently an infinite number of Bojangles.
I'm just saying, Hatter, if time doesn't want 3,000 divine beings rolling his dice in this precious singularity, maybe he should have installed a no dogs allowed sign.
Touché, my four-legged philosopher. Now, as you might have guessed, things didn't stay peaceful. The singularity, a kaleidoscope, impossible hues collapsed with a thunderous pop, leaving behind a citadel. Not just any citadel, a golden citadel floating, resplendent above the ruined singularity. Picture a fortress lit with the glow of eternal suns, bustling with divine purpose. The clones of Bojangles, tireless and inventive, set to work. Kennels rose like gleaming palaces. Factories churned out endless supplies of gravy bones.
And don't forget the tailors. Top-notch outfits for me and my duplicates. Gotta look sharp when you're storming the universe.
Indeed. Though not all methods were benign. Some forward war machines, weapons for, well, that's unclear. A purpose for what does a god need with 3,000 clones in need a battalion war? A question for later, perhaps. As for Bojangles Prime, the one true original, found himself in the cellar of his kennel, staring at a barren wine rack. And what's the god to do when the wine runs dry? Seek out the god of wine, of course, Dionysius, patron of revelry, madness, and the finest vintages in creation. With a grand flourish, Bojangles set off for Dionysius' citadel Vineyard. What greeted them was a paradise of endless vines, with grapes, each clustering, glowing faintly with the divine energy.
Ah, Bojangles, to what do I owe the pleasure? Need a drop of ambrosia, or perhaps a barrel of my finest for whatever you are plotting this time? You know, my dear friends, it's bigger than barrels. It's bigger than casks. I'm launching Overdrive, a gladiatorial spectacle where gods send their champions to brawl, duel, and generally cause chaos. We need the best wine to quench the thirst of the gods watching for the carnage. Overdrive sounds delightfully messy, but tell me, what's the flavor of this endeavor? What's its heart? Picture this. A festival to rival Olympus's finest champions, clashing under the constellations. Booths bustling with delicates and your wine, the wine pouring freely, and it's not just a brawl, it's an event. We'll have music, art, and even a little trickster's corner. Chaos in its most fucking elegant form.
And as they wandered deeper into the vineyard, the conversation veered wildly between philosophical musings and the logistical planning.
Chaos indeed, but the chaos will have rhythm, my friend. If this is the work, you'll need more than wine and warriors. Will the gods join willingly, or will you coax them?
Persuasion, the trickster's art. Who's better than I? Zeus will love the spectacle, Athena will call it strategy in action, and even Hades might bring his shades for a drink.
And the mortals, surely they'll play a role. Will they witness this madness?
Mortals will sing of it. Imagine songs penned for centuries, legends born under the drunken moon. Speaking of fucking moons, I'm thinking of inviting Selene to light up the arena. Her glow can, draw in the crowds.
By now, they are weaving an unsteady way through the vineyard, both drunk on wine and schemes. The vine seemed to hum with approval, as if the universe itself was delighted with their plans.
And what of Farmer Ace's crop? It's no secret his special blend could stir a crowd, or put the gods themselves to sleep.
Precisely. It's why we need it. A dish in the night, hands or paws, could create something unforgettable. Besides, Ace owes me a favour. He just doesn't know it yet, but he does.
Laughter echoed through the vineyard as they planned their revelry with the ages. Bojangles' mind raced with the possibilities. Dionysius matched his enthusiasm with bursts of poetic thoughts and toasts to anarchy. A moonlit countryside, with lush, hidden cannabis fields surrounded by a rustic wooden fence. The low growls of a dire-doodle ruffles could be heard faintly in the distance. Bojangles and Dionysius were standing by the fence.
Alright, mate, the plan's simple. We hop the fence, snag a plant, and then hightail it before the oversized mutt even knows we're here.
Brilliant plan, Bo, but, what if Farmer Ace catches us? He's got a whole shotgun and vengeance vibe going on, you know.
Mate, Ace couldn't catch a cold if he tried. Besides, this ain't any just weed. It's legendary, grown under the constellation of Orion with the moon water blessed by the druid or something or other shit like that.
A blessed weed, you say? Sounds divine. Let's do it.
The duo climbed the fence, stumbling over themselves but managing to land without incident. Dionysius tripped over his toga, splashing a bit of wine.
Did you hear that?
Relax, it's just the wind. Now, help me pick the perfect plant.
They find a particularly lush, sparkling cannabis plant under the moonlight.
Magnificent. It's practically glowing. This one must be the chosen one.
Perfect, and let's get it in.
Wait. I just can't take it. It deserves proper christening before her grand adventure.
Fine, but make it quick.
Dionysius pours wine around the plant in a ceremonial fashion.
I hereby name thee, verdant majesty. May your leaves bring joy to mortals and gods alike.
As they start to pull the plant from the ground, Dionysius pauses.
Oh, we can't just take her without testing. It's sacrilegious.
Fine. One joint, and then we move.
They roll a joint and light it. As the smoke rises, the two dissolve into laughter, and conversations lose track of time. Before not so long, they are surrounded by empty wine bottles and a pile of cannabis ashes.
Bo, do you ever think the stars are just celestial fireflies?
Nah, they're definitely holes in the universe's curtain, but Mate, where's the rest of the plant?
Both looked around, realizing that they've smoked the entire crop. A low menacing growl cuts through the air. Enter Diadoodles Ruffles, his glowing star-shaped mark catching the moonlight.
Oh shit, it's Ruffles. It's the Stardog, run!
Run? I'm a god, I don't run. But maybe this once.
The two sprint forwards towards the fence, but Ruffle barrels to them, barking ferociously. Dionysius clutches his wine bottle like a weapon, while Bojangles mutters prayers under his breath.
Bo, remind me of why I agreed to this madness.
But because you're the god madness, you daft git.
They collapse on the other side, catching their breaths, as Ruffles barks ferociously from the other side of the fence.
Bo, that was the most fun I've had in centuries.
Alright, worth it, mate. Totally fucking worth it.
Farmer Ace emerges with a shotgun, shaking his head at the destroyed crop, while Ruffles whines apologetically. Bojangles and Dionysius run into the distance, giggling. Eventually, Dionysius stops, a sudden, rare settling. He refilled his glass, but his usual mirth was tinged with something deeper.
I'll ask you one last question. Not about your grand quest or your veiled intentions, or even perchance your crimson nonsense.
Alright then, let's see your final shot and see if it hits the mark.
What do you remember about Vestige? Our next adventure is Cattleya and the case of the vanished children. I arrived in Exeter in 1924, the city swallowed by fog and grim whispers. My name's Samuel Cattleya, the newest detective constable at Scotland Yard. This was my first case, and I wasn't about to let my age or scepticism of my colleagues stop me. Fog, sleepy streets, and missing children. It felt like one of those stories that people told you around the fire, full of mystery and the unknown. But this wasn't one of those drunken tales. This was something real. And all that was left to complete the picture was a seance and a suspicious butler. So far, all I had been told was the head to the Pigeon's Head for my accommodation, where I'd be staying for the duration of my investigation. Not much to go on. The inn was old, well-worn, and as much as I hated to admit it, the whole town had the kind of dead, stagnant air with heavy tobacco smoke. The place was steeped in unease, and I could feel my bones like something was holding my breath, waiting. Tomorrow morning I was to meet the vicar. It was said he was to inform me about the missing children, 6 of them in total, all vanishing over the last 2 weeks. No traces had been left behind, no witnesses, just absences. A void where laughter and shouts had been. The vicar had a reputation for being a serious man. He was likely the best source of information, though I could not help but wonder how much he really knew. How much of what he believed was based on fact, and how much was rooted on superstition. I couldn't shake the feeling that this town, its people, its history, held secrets that were eager to share. A good portion of those secrets, no doubt, were wrapped up in the old inn that I was heading towards. I heard whispers of the Pigeon Head before, a place where time seemed to stand still, where people checked in but never really left. The innkeeper was Mr. Marlowe, a man of few words, but there was a certain weight in his eyes, like he knew something he wasn't sharing. I wasn't sure what it was yet, but I would find out soon enough. As I made my way through the fog towards the inn, my mind raced with questions. What happened to those children? Where did they go? And what role did this place play in their disappearance? I could already feel the dread settling in, an gnawing sensation that only grew stronger with each step. Tomorrow will tell me more, but for now, all I have was the oppressive silence and the feeling that something in this town was terribly wrong. The inn was the sort you would expect for this case like this. Creaky, cold, and far too quiet. The innkeeper, Mr. Marlowe, greeted me with a look of mixed curiosity and a touch of dread. Rooms at the end of the hall. Don't mind the drafts, we've had trouble keeping things warm. Lovely. Adds to the charm, I'm sure. I made my way to my room. The air seemed thick with something that I couldn't quite place. In the distance, a church bell tolled, muffled by the fog. No children, no witnesses, and an innkeeper with the warmth of a rattlesnake. What could possibly go wrong? The first night next day felt colder than it should have. I didn't get much rest. The wind outside clawed at the windows, rattling the panes, as if the verse city itself was trying to warn me. Inside my room, the twisted shadows creeping along the walls like wandering tendrils. I lay in my bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to ignore the unsettling feeling that crawled like spiders under my skin. Then, at exactly midnight, I heard it. A dragging, something heavy. It was faint at first, like chains scraping across the floorboards, slow and deliberate. The sounds made the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. Right, definitely not ominous. It grew louder, dragging its way through the halls, closer and closer to my door. My pulse quickened, a muffled scream followed by an eerie silence and a cold chill down my spine. I sat up, my legs shaking as I swung them over the side of the bed, feeling the weight of the moment sink in. I grabbed my torch from the bedside table, its cold metal handle and a comfort in my grasp. My revolver followed, tucked into the waistband of my trousers. The door creaked open, and under my hand I stepped into the dark corridor, each step echoing in silence. The dragging noise grew louder now, unmistakable, chains scraping across the wood. It led me down the hall, around the corner, and past the rooms of the other guests, had seemed unaware of the nightmare creeping through the inn. The door to the cellar was ajar, and I knew that was where the sound was coming from. I hesitated for a moment, but only for a moment. I couldn't just stand by. With a deep breath, I descended into the stairs. The air growing colder and thicker with each step, the smell of decay first hit me. Old, sour, like something had been rotting down there for dark in the years. The faint breathing reached my ears next, as though someone or something was waiting in the shadows. I froze, listening, my heart pounding like in my chest. The torchlight flickered, weakling, casting long, grotesque shadows against the wall. I crept forward, and the sound of my boots muffled by a wet stone underfoot. In the dim light, I saw something, lying in the centre of the room, something that made my stomach churn. It was a doll. It had a porcelain face, cracked and lifeless, its eyes painted wide and empty. But it wasn't the doll itself that made me catch my breath in my throat. No, it was the dark pool surrounding it, the crimson liquid that seeped from beneath like the toy of a dark promise. A child's toy, but whose blood? Before I could approach the door, the sound of something heavy crashing on the floor echoed through the cellar. I whipped around, a beam of my torch shaking as it swept over the room, but there was nothing there. The stillness was almost worse than the noise. I swallowed hard, my breath shallowed. Whatever was happening in this cursed inn, I wasn't sure I was ready for it. But there was no turning back now. Morning dawned, cold and grey, the heavy mist refusing to lift. I sat in the parlour of the Pigeon's Head with Reverend Marley, a weary man whose pale, trembling hands betrayed the calm he tried to project. Between us, a point of steaming tea sat untouched. His eyes fitted to the window more often than they met mine, as though the world outside threatened to break at any moment. It started with Tommy Allen 2 weeks ago. His parents swear they put him to bed that night, but by morning, the window was wide open and he was gone. Gone how? Was there a struggle? No, the room was untouched. But outside the snow there were tracks. Tracks? Large paw prints, bigger than any dog or larger than any wolf. Even they led away from the house, across the fields and straight towards the woods. I found making notes in my little black book. The vicar's voice grew quieter and his words weighed down with guilt. Tommy wasn't the only one. There were 3 more children that disappeared the same way. Open windows, no sign of struggle. Always those prints leading to the same forest. And then there was Mary Widdicombe. Mary? She came back, didn't she? For a moment, 2 nights after she vanished, she stumbled into the village square, covered up the cuts and dirts. She was clutching a doll, porcelain thing, its face cracked, and in her hands, well, her hands were raw like they'd been digging with them. Did she say anything? She spoke nonsense, something about glowing yellow eyes, watching her from the dark, and a shadow that moved faster than the wind. Before anyone could ask more, she vanished again. Before I could press him further, the parlour door creaked open. Miss Hargrove shuffled in, her frail hands clutching a worn handkerchief, her face ashen, and her voice trembled as she spoke. I beg your pardon, miss. If you're looking into this, you'll need to hear about the Black Beast. I raised an eyebrow, sceptical. Another local legend, I presume? More than a legend. The Black Beast's real, lass. Folks, I've seen it for generations. A great black cat, bigger than a horse, with glowing yellow eyes and claws like scythes. It's been spotted on the moors deep in the forests. Some say it's a spirit, others say it's flesh and blood. But there's one thing for certain. When it comes near, it leaves a trail of fear and death. The Reverend cleared his throat, looking away as if he'd been ashamed to admit his belief. So what? A giant cat that steals children? Convenient scapegoat, isn't it? Don't mock it. The beast just doesn't take. It marks the places it claims. Scratches deep in the floorboards, paw prints pressed into the earth at night. You hear its growl. Once it sets sights on a place, there's no one safe. Her words, no matter how fantastical, seemed too convenient. By the afternoon, I was inspecting the rooms, and there the children had vanished. Each one bore the same disturbing signs: deep, jagged scratches, ground into the wooden floorboards, as if something massive had been dragging itself through, giving some more credit to the theory of the Black Beast. Paw prints outside, scratches inside. Whatever this is, it's not human. I traced my paw prints outside, which led to the edge of the forest. They were enormous, larger than any feline tracks I've ever seen, and pressed deep into the frozen earth. As I crouched to examine them, the wind shifted, carrying a faint, menacing growl from the trees. The vicar hovered behind me, clutching a scarf against the cold. You shouldn't go in there alone, Miss Cattleya. I won't. Not yet. I'll go tonight. The sound was back. It clawed at my nerves and sat on the edge of the bed, revolver in hand. Coat draped over my shoulders. The paw prints, the scratches, something was out there. And I wasn't waiting for it to come to me again. The city slept under a heavy veil of moonlight. Shadows danced across the buildings, stretching and twisting like they had a mind of their own. Tracks from the day before were still faint but visible, leading out of the city towards the woods. The city slept under a heavy veil of moonlight. Shadows danced across buildings, stretched twisted like they had a mind of their own. Tracks from the day before were faint but still visible, leading out of the city towards the woods. Brilliant. Let's just chase those ghost cats into the night. What could go wrong? The forest loomed ahead, a dark moor shadowing the moonlight. I followed the trail, my heart pounding, loud with every step. The paw prints grew fresher as the frost thickened on the ground, each mark pressed deep, betraying the sheer weight of the creature. I froze, revolver raised. Every nerve in my body screamed. Who's there? I took a steady breath and paused. Boots crunching. The path twisted and narrowed. Roots clawing out of the earth as they were trying to trip me. The faint growl I'd heard before grew louder, vibrating in the pit of my stomach. It's just a beast. A big, angry beast. Nothing supernatural. Probably. The tracks veered sharply, leading to a clearing, where the ruins of the old estate rose against the horizon. The warehouse estate, its clean stone walls were draped with moss, windows boarded, and the air around it felt wrong. The forest itself was like it was holding its breath. I hesitated at the edge of the clearing, scanning the ground. The paw prints led straight to the estate's side, towards a smaller structure, half hidden by overgrown ivy. The cage was enormous, its iron bars bent and twisted outwards like something had torn its way free. The ground was churned and scarred, paw prints circling the structure like a frenzied dance. A cage, but for what? The forest beyond the estate was alive with movement, branches swaying, shadows shifting, but nothing emerged. The growl faded, leaving only a rustle of leaves. I turned back to the cage. Someone or something let it out, and judging by the tracks, it didn't leave on its own. I crouched near the cave, revolver resting on my knee. The faint stench of musk and decay clung into the air. Waiting was my only option now. I couldn't risk messing whatever might be returning to its lair. The night stretched endlessly, every creak, every whisper, and the forest settled into my nerves on edge. But as the dawn broke, the cage remained empty. Whatever had torn its way free wasn't coming back. Defeated, I scanned the area one last time. The paw prints just led away from the cage in all directions, but none pointed to anything concrete. Just more questions, more dead ends. The warehouse estate stood silent as I had left it behind, its secrets buried in the frost of shadows. Miss Hargrove was waiting for me, perched nervously in her usual chair by the fire. Her teacup trembled in her hand as she looked up, eyes wide with anticipation. "Well, did you see it? Did you find the beast?" The cage was empty, tracks everywhere, but no sign of the creature. "Well, then, it's still out there." "Oh, out there, yes, but it didn't escape on its own. Someone's controlling it, or at least helping it." The clues were paw print, scratches, the cage. But this led me in circles. The next step was clear, though. I needed something to stop following the beast and start hunting the one pulling the strings. That led me to what be my next lead. Mary Whitecomb. I need to know what she remembers. I sat across from Mary, the youngest of the children who vanished. Her face was pale, her hand still clutching a steaming teacup as she trembled silently in her grasp. The firelight flickered across the room, casting dancing shadows that seemed to echo the unease of her eyes. "Mary, I know it's hard, but anything you remember might help us find the others." I don't remember much. It's all blurry like a dream." So start with what you can. Where were you, and what's happened first? I remember being on a bed. I was tired, but then something woke me up. A sound, like scratching at the window. I didn't think it was real until I saw the shadow. The shadow? Was it a person? An animal? I don't know. It was big. Bigger than any animal I've seen. It didn't feel real. And then? I don't remember much. I woke up inside a sack. A sack? Like a bag? It was rough, scratchy. I think it was hemp. I could barely breathe. It was dark, and the air smelled of dirt and something rotten. Did you hear anything? Voices, footsteps? Just the sound of the bag dragging on the ground. I felt like it was being carried. And then? It stopped. I hit the ground hard and everything went quiet for a moment. I heard it. A growl, low, deep. The growl, was it close? So close. The stack moved. It was like someone was pulling it, and then it tore. A huge black cat. It was bigger than me, with glowing eyes. The black beast? It grabbed me by the collar and dragged me out. I kicked and screamed, but it let me go. Where did it take you? I don't know. It dragged me through the streets faster than I could see. I could feel the cobblestone under me, and I heard the wind rushing past, and it stopped. Stopped where? At the edge of the city, near where the woods. It dropped me there. Like I didn't matter anymore. And then? I just left. I ran back to the woods like someone more important than me. I let the words hang in the air, the weight of them sinking in. The black beast wasn't just hunting, it was choosing. For some reason, it had spared Mary. Mary, you have been very brave. This helps more than you know. It's not safe to be out after dark. You know that. The creature might come back for her, or one of us. Not if I find it first. The first to fall that night was Mr. Marlowe. I found his body hanging from the rafters in the dining hall, his face frozen in terror, a chain wrapped round his neck smeared with soot and blood. Well, that's one way to avoid a bad review. The others were in panic. I could shake the feeling that I was getting closer to something darker than I could understand. Changed soot. The air was thick with fear in Mr. Marlowe's grim demise. The guests clung like frightened children, their eyes darting towards the windows as if to expect a black beast or something worse to come crashing through. I stood near the fireplace, staring into the flames. The gears in my mind, it wasn't just random violence anymore. Whoever it was, or whatever it was behind, had a plan. We are going to stop this, and we need to draw it out. Draw it out? Are you mad? We should leave this place, this cursed place, before we all end up like Marlowe. Running won't save you, it's hunting us. And the only way to survive is to confront it. You're going to use me, aren't you? Only if you're willing. I won't force you. If it helps find the others, I'll do it. You can't use a child as bait. Have you lost any sense of decency? Do you have any better idea? Because the moment we wait, the more lives are at risk. I'll be with her the entire time, armed and ready if it shows itself. I'll end this. We set up the trap for the clearing in the woods. Just as Mary said, the creature had dropped her. She sat on the old tree stump, clutching a lantern in her small hands. I stayed hidden a few places away, revolver in hand, every muscle taut with anticipation. The others watched from their safety at the inn, their faces pale as ghosts through the windows. Stay calm, Mary. If you can see anything, call out. Okay. My heart thudded painfully in my chest as I scanned the tree line. The lantern's glow barely reached beyond the clearing. The woods loomed like an impenetrable wall of shadows. There! Just in time to see a flash of movement. too large to be a fox or a stray dog. Stay still, don't move. The black beast emerged from the shadows. His massive form, almost like a spectral moonlight. Its eyes glowed yellow embers, its form black as ink, with an imposing umbra. This was no ordinary animal, it was something out of legend. I steadied my revolver, finger brushing the trigger, just as I was about to fire. What the... The creature turned, snarling, before retreating back into the woods. My eyes darted back to Mary, who was unharmed by trembling violently. You was so close. You did good, Mary. Really good. Back at the inn, I reviewed the scene of Marlowe's death again. The chain marks on the walls, the soot on the floor, all pointed to something deliberate, calculated. The black beast didn't kill him. Something else did. I glanced at the other guests, who huddled together like frightened sheep. Some were in this room, but there was a missing piece of the puzzle. Someone knew more than they were letting on. Nobody leaves this inn until we find the truth. And we're running out of time. By the third night, I wasn't fooling myself anymore. The children hadn't wandered off into the night. They had been taken by mortal hands. No, the inn was a cage, a grim, decaying, feeding ground for something far older, far darker. Whatever evil had taken root here, it wasn't human. I could feel it now, the weight pressing down on me, pressing down on my chest, suffocating the air. The walls seemed to pulse with malevolent energy. This very structure of the building was aware of the sinister purposes. The faces of the remaining guests were drawn with terror, their eyes flickering nervously towards the shadows, unable to escape the inevitable. I prepared myself as best I could, revolver loaded, a holy symbol from Mrs. Hargrove clasped tightly in my hand, and a weathered old book of folklore that had been passed down through generations. It had all been left to me. Whether a nightmare lurked in the dark corners of this forsaken place. Suddenly the door to the dining room burst open, the wind howling as it slammed against the walls. There, a silhouette of the storm outside, stood the creature. The legend that made the flesh, and then some. Krampus. The very name of the beast that seemed to drain the warmth from the room, leaving a cold, suffocating darkness in its wake. He was a massive, towering over me, his hulking form draped like tattered black furs, his horns twisted like dragging roots of an ancient tree, curled upwards from his skull, scraping against the ceiling in an agonizing screech. His eyes burned like molten embers, full of malice, glowing with the hunger of a creature that had no mercy. The scent of sulphur and rot filled my nostrils as he snarled, revealing fangs like daggers dripping with venom. His breath was foul, and every movement was a horrifying reminder of the monstrous thing that he was, a demon of the winter, a hunter of souls. Ego te, excesso, spiritus malgamus. I stepped forward, revolver raised, my voice unwavering despite the terror clenching from my chest. The holy symbol in my hand began to glow with ethereal light, and then, for a moment, the beast seemed to flinch, his benevolent eyes glowing as the light clashed with the darkness surrounding it. Ego tu exisigo, spirit masculis, non posses here in high loco. But it wasn't enough. Krampus recalled for a moment, but then he was far from finished. With a final, bone-chilling roar, he lunged at me, his chains whipping through the air like a storm of iron. I fired the gunshot, ringing through the space. The bullet embedded itself into the dark, leathery flesh with a sinking thud, but the creature barely flinched. The beast's glowing eyes locked onto me one last time, filled with ancient hatred, with the final screech of defiance, or it retreated into the shadows, with a massive form disappearing into the darkened corners of the inn. I'm not done with you yet. Before it vanished completely, Krampus left a mark. Not just in the air, not just in my soul, but a message, written in soot across the walls, like letters burned in fire. I will return. I stood there, breathless, my heart pounding in my chest, as the remnants of the encounter faded into silence. I hadn't defeated Krampus, not fully. It had only been driven back for now. And as the laughter faded into the storm, I knew that the war was far from all over. By the dawn, the children were found, alive and hidden in the forest. The inn, however, was abandoned, its windows shattered, its halls empty, save for me and the echoes of the battle I fought. First case, and I've already sent a goat demons packing. Let's see what the Gobble boys back at the yard have got to do on top of that. I faced the darkness and survived, but I knew in my gut Krampus hadn't been defeated, just banished. The end? Or is it?
And that, dear listener, is all we have time for today. Concluding our adventures in the Chronicles of Anoki, as well as the Sassy and Hatter show. I'm intrigued to see where our adventures next go. Will Krampus return? And what will happen to our new detective? What will happen to Bojangles and his mysterious adventures with Dionysius? All will be revealed in the upcoming episodes. And remember, dear listener, no one can stop the power of your imagination. You are the masters of your own destiny, the masters of your own world. The limitation is only set by yourself. I hope you have a wonderful festive time of year, or a wonderful day if you're listening to this at another time. And myself, Sassy, Ghost, and the rest of the team wish you an amazing day. And remember, there's a whole world out there for you to explore. You just have to go out and seek it.